Hello and welcome to the On the Slate Movie Podcast. We are your hosts, Wesley,
Jason,
Asher.
And on the slate for today, we have a deep dive and breakdown of the recent MCU release, Captain America: Brave New World. Let's hit it, fellas. So, Captain America: The Brave New World has recently come out to a lot of criticism. And this is our first ever movie podcast where we talk about deep dive, like a movie that just came out. Mm-hmm. And I must say, gentlemen, it's always a lot of fun going to the movies with you guys.
It was
for sure.
It was a good time.
Yeah. I always love it.
Mm-hmm. We saw this pretty much opening weekend. It might have been like the Monday after it opened, but
yeah. I think yep.
And now it's been about a month or so, and we've had time to the dust has settled, and we've had time to think about it. And I think that's a great way to review movies. You know, There's a lot of great people out there that review them the day of, and that's great. But if you want to deep dive something, let it sit in. So excited to talk about it today. I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means, but I definitely think that it's not the worst in the MCU either.
Yeah.
So we're going to break all of that down. So
yeah, we've kind of done movies so far that we all enjoy and that we think are like worth talking about.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a little bit different because I don't think this really hits that same tier. And so, it's going to be fun just to see what we have to say. And yeah.
And we've all seen this movie one time when it came out. So
yeah,
we might miss some details. We might not remember everything. But
yeah,
I think it'll be a good discussion to have, breaking down like an individual movie in the MCU and then how that can inform like a broader discussion of our thoughts in the MCU and commentary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like we've touched on the MCU a lot in passing. Mm-hmm. It's good to finally have an episode where we can get into it.
Yeah.
The nitty gritty.
Let's discuss our grievances and or praises.
Air our grievances. It's an airing of grievances.
It's a safe space here.
In the public, what do they call it? Town hall.
Arena.
Yeah. So I have a plot summary here. So
from IMDb.
Sometime after the events of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam Wilson has now fully embraced his title as the new Captain America. And now Sam is summoned to the White House as the new president. Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford, wants to work with him on rebuilding the Avengers. But trouble follows when Sam's friend, Isaiah Bradley, uncontrollably tries to assassinate the president and is framed for the attempt. Now Sam and his partner, Joaquin Torres, must race against time to uncover the true culprit and foil an evil plot that unwittingly involves President Ross. So
that's what happened, huh?
Yeah.
That's a good concise way of recapping what did happen.
That was written by Blazer346. So
thank you, Blazer346.
You're a real one. Yeah, so the movie kind of kicks off in this Mexican drug cartel, I don't know, mansion or something.
It was a church.
It was a church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Old historical church.
Yeah. So the Sidewinder is there, who's played by Giancarlo Esposito. Mm-hmm. And he literally never plays a good guy in any movie. If you've known him as a good guy in a movie, let me know. But
honestly, Sidewinder sounds like a Transformers name to me.
I think it is. I think it actually is the name of a Decepticon or something. This is the movie starts off with what I would call a dud. All right,
because there's a couple red flags.
The movie starts and you have they're Sam's partner, really annoying kid. They're in a plane, right? And they're scanning over the church. And I guess before Sam shows up, he's like, "Oh my gosh, Sidewinder's there, leader of group I can't remember the name of." Just very expository.
Yeah.
And then you see Sam flying in, and then sidekick characters "Oh my gosh," and he's talking to like this general dude. I don't know, this other guy who we never see again. He's like, looks like Cap's got an upgrade. That's right, vibranium straight from Wakanda.
Yeah, Sam flew down. He was blocking the bullets with his wings, and they were like bouncing off and absorbing energy, just like Black Panther's suit, because of the vibranium technology. And the general guy was like, "What's that?" And then that's when Joaquin Torres was like,
he explains it for us.
He explains it for us.
Conveniently explains it for everybody. Not that we've already seen 30 of these already.
Yeah.
He also slips in an annoying joke about how it was even wrapped in vibranium. And he's like, I'm just kidding, General. Or Captain. Or Colonel.
He's right behind me, isn't he? No, I don't think that was actually the movie. That's just the meme.
And so then they go in and then they're like, how do we make sure people understand that this Sidewinder guy is evil and means business? All right, we'll have him threaten to kill a priest. That'll show him.
He says, "Don't cry, Papa. Don't cry, Papa.
Yeah,
Don't cry, Papa." But he says it in Spanish.
Padre.
Padre.
Yeah, he's like, no llores.
He's like a father, like Catholic father. Yeah.
But then we get an actually like fun fight scene that I didn't hate. The fight scene against the big, tough Russian-looking dude, who probably isn't Russian.
Yeah.
It was
Marvel action is just, I don't know. I feel like it's all right. But
I feel like it. Look, we're not going to classify everything that's ever been as like all right, because there's like a ton of really good action in phases 1 through 3.
Like, you got good stuff from Winter Soldier, from Civil War.
Infinity War, you're telling me, like, that whole fight scene against Thanos is, like, excellent.
And the Three Amigos.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
And the Guardians and Doctor Strange. Like, that's like, you want to talk about using CGI to enhance a fight? That, I would like point to that.
Yeah.
But even, like, the original Iron Man movie has some good, like, action set pieces. There's not a lot of hand-to-hand in that movie, but just fun action. But I don't think the first fight scene in this movie is bad. Like, the one against the guys in the courtyard is like, it's really CGI heavy, and it's like, oh, he's glowing purple because he absorbs stuff. But his fight against the dude in the I guess like in the chapel is like, I think is well, it's shot well and it's choreographed well. The only thing that's weird is like then he gets stabbed. I was like, isn't your suit made of vibranium?
Yeah.
Does he have a vibranium knife or something?
They
don't address it.
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember much. I do remember thinking, like, I think they did a pretty decent job. Yeah, like filming the action. The shield part of the action, it's just something we've seen so many times. But the cool thing about Sam Wilson is he's also got like his own style of fighting with the wings and his little robot guy, which we've also seen that quite a few times as well. But
yeah,
I mean, if in a vacuum, like, yeah, I think it's a really good like opening sequence in terms of showing off what he can do.
Yeah. And I give him credit because I heard Anthony Mackie say that he did a lot of the stunt work, and like his stunt coordinator basically came up with things that he could do, at least to the extent of, certain things. I'm not sure if he did everything, but I know he did like a good amount of it. And so it was kind of cool hearing that they did choreograph things in a way that Anthony Mackie could perform that, which I like the authenticity of that, at least. But then I also think, on the other hand, you have stunt performers and stunt doubles for a reason, because they excel at that. But just some thoughts there. Yeah.
So the opening sequence, somewhat interesting in terms of the action, I think. I feel like the Sidewinder being in this movie, he's just like a sub-villain. Like, I'm not saying he's like filler, because I guess he played a role in the plot.
Does he? He serves...
And later on, he gives them like information that he needs.
Yeah, it seemed like they kind of set him up for something, but then...
Well, but he's like ham-fisted in there. So like, at the end of like that fight scene when he lets Giancarlo or Sidewinder escape, he says something like, your buyer didn't show up. And Giancarlo's like, I will find my buyer and I will kill him. Or I said that in a Russian accent. That's terrible.
He's not Russian.
I know, but he's like, I'm going to find out who rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that leads to another scene later in the movie. He's like, I found the guy who rubbed me the wrong way and he paid me a lot of money to kill you. So,
yeah.
My point is like, it's super forced. He's like, I'm going to go find the guy who did this. And it's probably going to be very important. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of having the Sidewinder and things. I mean, I think the conflict that he had like midway through the movie, like that second scene with him, I mean, I thought that was interesting. It showed creativity. It showed off like what he could do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just like, it's just the same thing that actor has done in like so many different other roles. And like, I really like Giancarlo Esposito. I just think, I don't know. I just want to see, like, I feel like every time I see him now, it's like, I can't detach him from this typecast role, you know, which is a bummer because I think he's a really, really good actor. Mm-hmm. And I think he has so much more to offer. But I don't know. Maybe he just can't get other kinds of roles that really let him show off like what he can do. But he does have that menacing, imposing, like almost like Shakespearean way of acting, like where it's very like he's a very clear communicator with like he's very confident with the way he speaks, you know. But yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, he's the bad guy.
Well, I don't mind him being a bad guy in things. I just think he deserves to have like a leading, like antagonistic role. I don't think he works as well as a side villain.
Yeah.
You know, like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are so good, or he's so good in those because he's like a lead role. And he really gets to, like, he gets time to act. Like in this movie is like, he barely is like in the movie. All his lines are stupid. He's like literally just there to drive the plot forward.
Yeah.
And he's actually, we'll get to it later, but he's like a big plot hole.
He's not a character. He's a plot device that knows action moves, you know?
It would have been interesting though. What if if they did just focus on him as the main antagonist, ignore Harrison Ford's Thaddeus Ross and the Hulk thing, ignore the leader, the main villain, and just focus on him versus Sam, because I feel like that would be.
I think that would have been better for the character.
Explore.
Yeah.
For Sam Wilson's version of Captain America, just this really making your first movie be this big, like thing. I don't know. I think it's like you're tackling a little bit too much for the first version of this character we're supposed to be getting, I guess, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole movie it's a whole hodgepodge of like almost like could have been good.
Yeah. And the Sidewinder, obviously not the greatest villain. I think where the movie, like, I think where it's most interesting is when it's really focusing on like the character aspects. You know, like we know that Marvel is going to have some pretty decent action sequences, but like really I think what made a movie like The Winter Soldier really great was that I feel like Captain America, like Steve Rogers, was like a person that was like experiencing a lot of things, right? Like this is his first movie that he was in other than the Avengers, I guess, but this was like his first solo movie after he came out of the ice.
Yeah.
You know, and he had to deal with his past. He not only like Bucky coming back, but like the implications on how he felt. And
He also challenges worldview.
Yeah.
And I feel like
what he was like pledging his allegiance to even crumbles, and he's having to deal with that.
Like up to this point, he's like super loyal to like the government and stuff like that. And they're challenging that. They're like, well, what do you do if the government betrays you? Like, do you still fall in line or do you not? That's why it's so good. We don't get that in this movie.
Yeah. I feel like Sam, like the attempt to work on Sam's character, I don't think is as memorable. Because I don't think he doesn't feel like the epicenter of these stories. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like all the problems around him, like he didn't cause. They're not, the stories aren't personal really. I mean, it's a little bit personal with like the Isaiah Bradley stuff,
which is the
and,
best parts. Probably
his relationship, which Carl Lumbly, like really great as Isaiah Bradley.
That was one of my favorite performances, actually.
He was totally sidelined for most of the movie, but he got a few scenes in there where, yeah, I mean, just really great acting. And
Yeah.
Harrison Ford as well. I mean, we'll get into his character too, but yeah, just to focus on like Sam Wilson as a protagonist, like I don't think Anthony Mackie's a bad actor. I just don't know if the writers have really done him justice really in Captain America and the Winter Soldier
Yeah, that's where he first shows up.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now this Brave New World. It feels like these stories aren't very personal to him. Not that they're like completely devoid of him being emotional. There are some elements that I don't want to forget those, but at the same time, yeah, it just doesn't seem like he's what this story is about. It feels like we're just trying to make a cool action thriller that's trying to say something about society, which it doesn't work if your lead isn't a character. If your lead is like, he's just driving the plot, but he doesn't feel like anything's like personal to him. You know, like he didn't have a guy like Bucky that from his past, you know, that came back and was evil and had to deal with that like Steve did. And he didn't have Peggy, right? He doesn't have like any romantic interests, and he doesn't have like any really close friends. I guess he has like Joaquin Santos, who like is again just I think one of the worst characters in the movie. No disrespect, I just think it's just
Joaquin Torres. Sorry.
Yeah. Did I say Santos? Maybe that's another person from some other thing that I mentioned. I don't know what that is. Sorry, whoever you are.
I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to at least.
Anyway, I'm talking a lot. So
No, you're talking good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm verbally processing this as I'm.
I mean, I
I
think to tie to what you're saying, and in the Winter Soldier, we do get Sam's backstory a little bit of like why he's this Falcon soldier,
which they've completely ignored since that movie.
Because what he had a companion in there, and he got shot out of the sky. Sam says, and so like that's a backstory that you can build off of, you know.
And he helps veterans with like physical therapy or something.
Yeah,
or he was like a counselor. Like,
yeah,
mental health counselor. He was leading the group. Yeah, it's like I don't know that those personal elements aren't here in Brave New World really. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you could think of something that's like a personal motivation or drive for him. I mean, other than his general, I mean, I guess, yeah, he wants to get his buddy out of prison. Mm-hmm. But again, like, I'm not feeling super emotionally attached to that because Carl Lumbly is like, or Isaiah Bradley, he's sidelined for most of the movie, like in jail. He doesn't really talk about him that much. He's not like a legacy character in the MCU, so we don't honestly know much about the relationship other than a couple episodes on a Disney Plus series. Mm-hmm. And that's like one motivation for him, like doing things, but it evolves into like, you know, this whole big plot, which I think has interesting elements, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. I just think the only motivations really for him are, oh, I'm just a good guy and I'm Captain America, you know, like nothing like felt personal for him. Mm-hmm. His relationship with Ross like was not something that was established before this. His relationship with his sidekick, very slightly established, but even in that show, like he doesn't ever suit up. You know, he's just like kind of there a little bit, but.
So in the movie, this is kind of when they introduce Joaquin.
Like that was his like.
Let me use his.
That was his introduction as his like sidekick.
Okay.
In a super suit.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't have the suit in the show. I think you guys are both right. Like this character has no anchor. There's no like defining like this is what defines Sam Wilson as a character. There's like a lot of like vague ideas that he has, and I do think they set him up pretty well in the Winter Soldier when he's first introduced. And you don't really have a choice when you have like in Civil War and in Infinity War. There's just so many characters. You're not like it's fine. But I think that's the point of having this kind of movie is to give the character an anchor. I think it would have been really good to have Bucky come back. If you want to think of like something that was set up, and I know it's another borrowed friend from Captain America or from Steve Rogers, right? But the best part of the Captain America and the Winter Soldier show, or whatever it's called, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is a lot of the best scenes in that show is Bucky and Sam interacting with each other.
Yeah.
And I think this movie would have done better to have him in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Working with Sam. And then there's a little bit more, because then you can relate this even more to the Isaiah Bradley stuff, because he brings it up in the movie. He's like, I had a friend who was also mind controlled. Like, how much more impactful would that be if you had that friend along for the ride, who also would feel personally like invested, even though he doesn't know Isaiah that well, but just can relate to him because of the situation. There's just so
they
much
could
missing.
easily replace him with Joaquin, Torres.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a better movie if they would have able to work that
Yeah.
in.
Now I get Bucky doesn't have wings and can't fly around or whatever, but you don't need, like, it's so weird that his sidekick just does the exact same thing he does, but has worse gear,
And his suit was terrible, guys. I'm sorry.
From a production standpoint, or from like a design standpoint, his suit did not look visually appealing at all.
Joaquin's?
Yeah.
It looked goofy.
It is like, what's wrong with the Falcon suit from Winter Soldier? The basic one, I guess, is very
like
first
just
one,
the jetpack he puts on or whatever.
that he just wears with like military fatigues or something.
Yeah.
But no, so like I think they miss a huge opportunity by not having Bucky be this sort of grounding or anchor point for Sam. That can also, you can keep the Isaiah Bradley stuff. And I think it hits a lot closer to home.
Yeah.
I don't know. This movie is just a big missed opportunity, I think.
It leads me to just like pose the question, do we even need Sam Wilson as Captain America? Do we even need another Captain America at all right now? Because I think Sam Wilson as the Falcon has been a really solid character, I think, for the most part. And I feel like that character suited Sam well, It just doesn't feel the same. Like the way Steve Rogers came into the role of Captain America felt earned and it felt right, but then having this new person coming in as Captain America just doesn't feel the same, and it doesn't feel like it has the same weight. And for me, it's just like, honestly, I think the MCU could still thrive without another Captain America. Like, there's a lot of really interesting characters that you can work with that you can still give as, some sort of leader role. Because I know, Captain America is one of the leaders in these first couple of phases. So, yeah.
And I think that the legacy of Captain America, like, why do we like Steve Rogers and have so like fond memories of him as a character versus Sam Wilson? Like, why do we not feel like Sam Wilson like demands the same respect from the other heroes like Steve did? Like, why am I guess, like, help me process this, guys. Like, why don't I feel like that same connection with Sam that I did with Steve?
I mean, I think part of it's Sam just doesn't get the chance to be a main character before this. So it's not really his, it's like, all the movies he's been in, he's either, a secondary protagonist or he's like Infinity War, he's a background character. He's like barely in the movie. So, like, that's not to the fault of the actor or anything. It's just where, you can't involve literally everybody in that movie, right? Or in these movies. So the writing from like super simple and all this other stuff. So I think that's why, like, Captain America had two full movies dedicated to just his character. Shares the majority of the screen time in the Avengers movies with Tony, right? So you just get a lot of time with Captain America, and you get a lot of dedicated writing to the character that you're just not going to get with the Falcon. And again, that's my point. Like, this movie is supposed to be what establishes Sam Wilson as Captain America. And I agree with you, Asher. I don't think we need another Captain America. I think we've talked about it in, just amongst ourselves, where I just don't believe, at least as far as the films go, like comics are, people are always like, well, in the comics they do this and that. It's like, the comics are different, man. They're not movies. You can't, they don't translate. They honestly don't translate very well at all. It's a miracle we got the MCU, Iron Man in 2008 was a huge success, like a surprising success.
Yeah.
So this idea that we have to do things like the comics do them is ridiculous. So to that point, I don't think we need mantles to be passed down.
Yeah.
And from a money standpoint, you just have no choice. It's like, dude, people are not going to come watch The Falcon, right? I guess. I feel like people would, but, they have to slap Captain America on there.
Yeah. And I really don't think that the MCU has done a good job of transferring like what the legacy of Captain America should be, right? So like if Captain America is not a person, it's like a symbol, right? So anybody can take up the mantle. If that's what they want to go with, that's fine. But I don't think that they've done a good job of transferring that legacy of Steve Rogers to Sam Wilson. And I think a big part of why Steve Rogers in particular was so important, not only to like us, the fans from like outside of the movies, but like in the universe. I mean, this guy was like punching Hitler and like literally like in the, remember the propaganda, I guess. Yeah. Like he was like this American icon that everybody knew.
Yeah. And
he would actually go out there and fight, and it was like on TV, and this was like, he was like the first superhero, and he was an American, and like people felt patriotic. They felt hope. They felt inspired by the idea of this like super soldier. And that's and also at the center of it, like, why was Steve Rogers selected to be Captain America? It wasn't like, remember that scene, one of the best scenes in the MCU, or like one of the best like first acts of an MCU movie was the first Avenger. And I'm glad that you put it on your Mount Rushmore. Because I think that movie is really underrated.
It's a great movie.
Like, I understand the third act like might be your, like, a lot. That's what most people say. Is
I'm
like,
a fan of the
what holds it back is like the third act is just bland generic stuff, which whatever.
You could say that about, like,
people
every
will say
MCU
anything.
movie.
Maybe it does lose some story momentum. I don't know, but I have to rewatch it. But but the reason why like the beginning of that movie is so good, it's because Steve feels like a guy like you want to root for.
Yeah.
Like he gets beat up in the alley and he keeps getting back up.
Yeah.
And this is like when he's a little puny shrimp guy. This is like CGI.
Shrimp Rogers.
Yeah, Shrimp Rogers. Dude.
Which looked really good in 2011. I remember thinking like, man, did he like get skinny and then buff up for it?
Yeah.
Now it looks a little, you could tell it's CGI today, but
there was like one shot when I rewatched it the other month where he's walking up to the guy to stamp his paper, where like he's in line, like all the guys are in their boxers, and he walks up to the podium to like get certified for the army or not. And when he does walk up to the podium, his body and head do kind of look a little not fully like it's the same person. But still, I think overall the effects of him being, put on another body.
Puny shrimp, man.
Yeah. And
Shrimp Rogers.
He wanted to go to the war so bad. He just wanted to like, he was like the typical American. He wanted to win this for America. Like, but he was also a man of like high character. Like he jumped on that grenade, thinking it was going to go off. And he did all of these things. And Tommy Lee Jones was like, well, what about this guy? He just passed all his physical tests with flying colors. And then Stanley Tucci's like, no,
he's a bully.
I need the guy that has the good heart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cheesy, but it's like true. Like this is who, like Captain America was Captain America before. Like his character was like set up before that. Right. And I think that's why we don't like Sam as much. And not that like I don't like Sam,
right?
But he's always been a sidekick. We've never seen his origin, which, in a 30 movie MCU, like, everybody has an origin pretty much at that point. Even Black Widow got an origin, you know,
Yeah.
and like, and not to say that you have to force an origin in every story, but it's like we don't see that like we got with Captain America, right?
What if this movie started with not an action scene at a church in Mexico where you fight some snake league or whatever, and instead it was him helping veterans or whatever? You know what I mean? Like going back to how the character was introduced. And this is what he does in his off time when he's not out avengering.
Yeah.
You know?
But even then, like, I still think it's kind of late for that. Like, I mean, it could be nice.
Is it late?
It could be nice
This is
and effective for the movie. But
I mean, this is technically our introduction to the character as a main character. I don't think it's too late. I mean, I think you're doing disservice to Sam Wilson by not having that because we didn't do that. We have what we get. We have this. You know.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like I want to see why Steve said I want you to be Captain America.
Well, I think you get that if you have the movie starting off with him helping these veterans.
I would have liked to have seen like it would have been nice to see maybe like Chris Evans come back for this to like film some scenes or something to be like, hey, here's some like flashback moments of like him and interacting with Sam Wilson and like how would like really like why what was like the before the super serum type thing,
what was the
right?
moment that Sam Wilson never has?
Well, yeah, true, but like I'm just saying like before you became Captain America, right?
You want to see like a flashback where you see like
who is
the
this
moment
guy?
that Steve recognizes like this guy can carry the mantle.
Yeah.
I would have liked that.
And the only reason I can think of why is because even after watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I don't think it really clears that up, right? I think it's like, oh, he can get the job done. Like, he can beat bad guys. But, like, outside of that, you know, in a poorly written monologue where he says, do better. Like what is, and that was after Steve was, like, not around, right? So, like, why? Yeah. It was confusing switch. Like, we thought he might have picked Bucky, who I think had a little bit more of like a character build up for him. But at this point, Sam has probably had more work done on his character.
Has he? So Bucky,
but I don't know.
Like I'm of the belief that the mantle shouldn't be passed down. I think, you know, Captain America is Captain America. We have the Winter Soldier and we have the Falcon now.
Yeah.
But if you want to make an argument for like Bucky has an arc in the movies, which is more you can say about Sam because Sam starts out good, so there's nothing really for him to do. But Bucky, between the Winter Soldier and Endgame, has an arc, and it's mostly in the background after the Winter Soldier, right? Or after Civil War. But you see the progress in his character, you know, even if it's kind of takes a back seat, much like everyone else in Infinity War and Endgame, but it's there. So I don't know. You set it up. They set it up for that, and then they were like, we're going to give it to Sam. And it's not like a big setup. It's not like, oh, they're definitely going to do it and change their minds last second or something. But it definitely seems like that was the direction that they were going at first, maybe, and then change their minds eventually. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I would have preferred no one becomes Captain America because I just don't like I said, these aren't comic books. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
This whole mantle, you're not going to be able to recapture what makes Steve Rogers really cool in a different person.
Yeah, and it's just he had such a strong like unifying presence among everybody. Like they listened to him. Like even in Civil War at the end when he won, when he beat Iron Man, he like didn't kill him. You know, he chose to like save him, and he even gave him his shield. Like because I think he had the wisdom to see like what like
the error, like his own flaws.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I messed up to let it get this far, but also like, Tony, like I think you took this too far, and like, I need to humble you, but also like I care about you, and like I want us to continue. And I know it might be a while, but hey, here's this little flip phone. You've got my number. Call. You know, and I think that Sam might be that kind of guy, right? But we don't really know, you know? So I think that's the core of the issue. We get hints at it in the movie and the show, and anyway.
You bring up something interesting about the shield too, because we see it like a couple times, at least twice that I'm thinking of. In The Winter Soldier, when Steve Rogers and Natasha / Black Widow and the rest of the crew go onto the ship in the beginning of the movie and do kind of like the night like takeover to get the hostages free and stuff.
Oh, is that the Winter Soldier? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So you have like Steve Rogers faces off against that Russian guy. And
I think he's French.
oh, is he?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, he's
actually,
like-
that's George St. Pierre. He was a UFC fighter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember
So
that.
isn't his name in the movie like Batrov or something?
Batroc.
Batroc.
Yeah.
So that we have that fight scene between them two, and Batroc says something to Captain America of his helmet and his shield and stuff. So basically, Cap is like, okay, like I don't need my shield or my helmet to go up against you. So he disregards them. And then in Civil War, he disregards the shield, like he leaves it with Tony after the fight at the end. And we see that the shield is not what makes Captain America Captain America. And even Captain America knows that. He knows how to use it because we see in the first Avenger, he starts being Captain America with just like, you know, a puny fake shield.
Like some aluminum shield.
Yeah,
or
because he's
something.
like, you know, it's more handy than you think. And so they upgrade him. But, you know, the reason he was using that was for protection, and that's smart. But I feel like in Captain America Brave New World, they put so much emphasis on this shield. And even in the TV show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they put so much emphasis on the shield of like, this is what makes you Captain America, and like you have to have this. And for me, that's backwards. You know, there was so much emphasis on it as this entity that makes you Captain America, when it's like, no, like this just helps you be better at what you do. It's a tool. It's just like Spider-Man Homecoming. Like Tony takes away Peter's suit because Peter says, I'm nothing without the suit. Tony is like, if you're nothing without it, then you shouldn't have it. You know, that suit doesn't make you who you are. It just can help you be better at what you already do, you know? So
that's an excellent point that I didn't catch on to.
Yeah. And like with Sam, I don't think he's like a bad guy without the suit. I just don't think like I said earlier, like we just don't see it enough. So it's like, it just feels like they arbitrarily kind of picked a guy that was loyal to Captain America or to Steve Rogers. So I guess that's more of my criticism of Sam Wilson as a character. It's not that I don't think he could be a good Captain America. It's just, and like fill up that legacy, but it just, I don't think the writers have done the work to like make you feel that.
You know, there's this really small scene near the beginning of the movie where Sam is in a bar and everybody's calling him Cap. And they're like, it's on the house, Cap. And I'm just like...
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right, right?
With Steve, like, I get it in the real world, like, when you're out and about, it's kind of unavoidable because obviously people would know who you are. But would Steve really be in a bar accepting people paying for his stuff, calling him Cap all the time? Like,
I would do that.
But you're not Captain America.
That's why I'm not Captain
You're
America.
not Steve Rogers.
But it's like, it's just this really small thing. And I get it. They want to emphasize this idea, like, Sam Wilson is Captain America. And they're like, we're going to put everything in the movie we can to show that. But I'm like, in doing that, you're kind of missing the point of the character of Captain America, where it's like this selfless, you know, the whole, I think the best way to describe Captain America is selfless and enduring, right?
Yeah.
That's not very, like, you know, it's not very selfless. Like, you know, I get it. It's like if Steve really went into a bar or something, would people recognize him? For sure. Would people try to pay for his drinks? Probably. But would Steve Rogers even be in like a bar? I don't know. Maybe not. And I get Sam's a different person, but I just don't know. I feel like Steve in the same situation would not be like, he would say like, just call me Steve, you know, don't call me Cap. Right. Or, you know, and he would insist that he pays for his own drinks. I think. Maybe he wouldn't, but I think he would. Right.
If he were to drink, because we find out in First Avenger,
that he can't get drunk.
He can't get drunk. Which I think that also speaks to a lot of his character. And this is something minimal. This is something I picked up on. Not everyone might have seen it, but it's kind of a tangent on what you're saying, Jason, about Captain America, like Steve Rogers. He he's kind of like this upright guy that people can look up to, that people can have as a role model. And even in Age of Ultron, you know, Tony swears because he tries to fly into a castle, but there's a force field around it, and so he swears, and so Steve Rogers goes over the intercom, language, and so it's like this. There's this idea that Steve is kind of like this upright figure that you can lean on.
Yeah.
And he's not going to put up with, you know, crap. And
he's from like this past generation, the greatest generation,
yeah,
right? Where they're just, everyone's clean
and I know he does kind of get more rugged throughout like Civil War, Infinity War, like Endgame era. I know he does get more rugged, but at the same time, when I was watching Brave New World, you know, Sam didn't have like a lot of language, but when he did swear or something, it just didn't feel right. I was like, I feel like someone who's Captain America should be more of this upright person. Yet we see him in a limo with Isaiah Bradley and Joaquin like drinking it up because they're about to go to the White House and like have like a fun time. I'm like, that just doesn't seem like something Captain America would do. Like Captain America, I feel like the core of who Steve is would, you know, I feel like he would have more of this understanding that there's a reason he's going to the White House and he wants to respect that and honor that. And so I don't feel like he would have this party mentality about going to the White House, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that was also on his sidekick.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about his sidekick as a character, but because he's not like in the movie that much, he doesn't really do much. He almost dies.
He's
but
a
like,
super hacker
I'm just like,
for no reason.
Yeah, he all of a sudden can like super hack, which maybe he could do that on the show. I don't remember, but
he did do something very smart though.
Yeah, he just like casually like. Sorry, before you say
go ahead.
He casually like hacked into the White House cameras, just like casually. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Beep, boop, boop, boop.
That's so stupid. Anyway,
and he made sure to tell us that.
Yeah,
like some more expository.
He's like, I'm breaking the law or something.
You know,
committing felonies.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying, Jason, about the opening. Like, it's just more expository. It's like if we were to see him looking at the computer screen, the audience is smart enough to know that he's probably hacking into White House security cameras.
Oh, hey, look, that's a scene from the White House from a different angle, and it's kind of fuzzy like CCTV. He must be in the White House security.
It was
camera.
a frozen cloud moment, bro. Frozen cloud.
Episode 1 callback.
Episode 1.
I don't know why you don't like the frozen cloud moment so much. I think it's funny.
Ship runs into a cloud that's frozen. Matthew McConaughey says, "Oh, frozen cloud." It's like, yeah, so yeah, we just saw that. Thank you. Anyway, so let's talk about Harrison Ford's character.
Yeah, I guess.
Or wait, did you have something else?
I thought you said he did something smart.
So he did.
Oh, what did he do?
He did do something smart. When Joaquin, Sam, and the, I guess maybe new Black Widow lady, not sure, went to the army bunker, and he played that song that was mind controlling all of the people just to see if anyone around them was like doing was under that, like you know, in a way that's a little reckless, but also at the same time, like you want to make sure you're in a safe space. And you know, I thought that was kind of a cool moment, just like it caught me off guard.
No, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and shout out Thomas Ward for also talking about that, because it kind of brought it back to my memory. I was like,
that's your friend?
That's one of my friends, yeah.
He's been mentioned multiple times on this podcast.
Yeah, he's a solid fan. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah, so he's just, I thought he was kind of cringy. Him like taking all the pictures at the White House.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I feel like he was trying too hard. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like.
But I see
this
why.
This isn't how people act. I don't know. Maybe it is.
But I see why it's essential to the story, because Isaiah Bradley interacting with his phone was part of the reason why he was mind controlled. Because we saw in the security cameras that he so conveniently hacked that the screen was flashing at Isaiah Bradley's face. So in the moment, I was like, why are we spending so much time on these guys taking selfies? But then it's like, I guess
Chekhov's gunned it.
I guess just the execution.
You never heard of Chekhov's gun?
Chekhov's gun?
Yeah. It's like a thing in movies. Like if you see a gun in a scene, and then the next scene that's probably going to be used.
Oh yeah, they like intentionally have like a cutaway to that gun or an important object, and then they flash back to it. A pipe or something just dinged in the background.
I think it's the patio.
The patio.
Yeah. So you never heard of Chekhov's gun? I think it's from a movie directed by somebody named Chekhov or something. I don't know. But basically, there's like a gun on the mantle.
Yeah, the over focus on like their phones and like, yeah, I figured like that something this will probably come back somehow, but I just feel like it was executed really.
Well, he also says like my
cringy.
phone's acting weird.
Yeah,
He says that like in
he's
a
just a
scene.
boomer, you know. No, he was actually being mind controlled.
He's the strongest boomer.
Yeah.
So, anyway, at that party, they finally meet the president. Mm-hmm. And
Thaddeus Ross.
yeah, Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford. So, yeah, I think he
gives a great. I think he gives a good performance.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I buy him as actually being Thaddeus Ross. Now, the actor.
Based on your perception of the past movies, or like the
the past movies. I just think I get it. The character's the actor's dead.
What was the old actor's name?
Not sure.
Sorry,
You're gonna have to Google that for me. buddy.
it was like something Hurt.
It's
Was
a
it
really cool
William Hurt.
William
or
Hurt.
John Hurt.
No,
William
John Hurt. John Hurt's a different guy who's also dead, by the way.
Gotcha.
Classic actor.
Yeah, William Hurt. Yep.
William Hurt. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We spend a surprising amount of time with William Hurt as Thaddeus Ross in the MCU, from the 2008 Hulk movie all the way up to he shows up in like Infinity War for a few scenes.
Yeah.
And
And he's in Black Widow.
And Civil War.
Yeah,
He's got a
in Civil
good
War.
part in Civil War.
I think his last movie he appears in is Black Widow, though, and he's in that movie a little bit.
Okay.
I really liked his portrayal of Ross.
I think he's a solid character in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have like any major.
You know about Harrison
complaints.
Ford?
Or just him and also the character. You know.
Yeah, so I think the character is good. I just like I guess maybe I'm attached to the William Hurt version. That seeing Harrison Ford, I'm like, you just don't look like him. But they have a scene with him with the mustache on. I'm like, I don't know why they didn't keep that.
They did. I remember that.
I honestly thought
Harrison
the mustache
Ford
looked.
with a mustache.
I thought it looked fine. I think it would have sold it.
Dude, that was...
But you can't. When was the last time a president of the U.S. had facial hair?
Why does that matter?
Probably
It does.
When was the last time the president turned red?
It was probably Thomas No, not Thomas Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt had a mustache. That was like over 100 years ago. Or maybe like 100 years
He's
ago.
worried about the president having a mustache. when
No,
the
but that's a
president-
real thing. Presidents don't have facial hair.
Presidents also don't turn into red giant monsters.
Well, that is true. But that's different. That's not even the same thing.
Different.
I'm just saying, like, it's an actual real life thing that presidents shave. Like J.D. Vance is like the first vice president to have facial hair in like a long time.
I did not know that.
So
Well,
that's a real thing.
this is a fake movie, so that's a stupid rule.
Well, they made something real about the movie, so there was facial hair.
Is that what it is? Were they following that trope, or does Harrison Ford just not want to have a mustache on?
I don't know.
I think he should have kept the mustache.
I'll ask next time I see him.
I would have been like, I mean, come on, man. Thaddeus Ross has a mustache, bro. He has a mustache.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Harrison Ford have any facial hair. Have I?
In that movie, there's a flashback scene.
I feel like he's in another movie where he has kind of more of a beard. And I think even maybe in...
Did he have one in like Indiana Jones?
I don't think so.
No, I think he has a beard in Call of the Wild. Remember that movie from a few years ago with the
I never
dog?
watched it.
Neither did I.
We're talking a long time about beards. I didn't think we would.
Anyways, we like Harrison Ford.
He's
in this
easily
movie.
the best character.
We like
the
him in
movie.
this movie.
Easily the most well-written character. I think he has personal stakes in the movie. I think he's like trying to grow and like has like an actual character arc, which I don't think any other character really has an arc in this movie. Not even Sam. Maybe Sam has one, but
Yeah.
I don't really think he does. Like
He's the
No.
same person at the end of this movie.
yeah, like I mean, he's just a good guy. You don't
Yeah.
really learn much about him.
He's a stand-up guy.
I guess he's got like a sister.
You good guy,
You
Sam.
know,
You good guy.
But Harrison Ford, like, this is a guy who's been at the top of American defense and intelligence for a long time. And you know, he's always like do the job by any means necessary, does some shady things to get the job done. And his daughter, who's Liv Tyler, in The Incredible Hulk. This very much seems like more of a sequel, by the way.
I was going to say
The Incredible Hulk than any other movie.
The writers wanted to make a Hulk movie, but they were forced to make a Captain America.
Seriously, it's like all of the characters from, like the villain, Thaddeus Ross is in it. Like Liv Tyler is in it at the very end.
Hello, Father.
And a very poorly lit scene, by the way. I thought she might. I legitimately considered the possibility that the Corridor Crew video would like they'd make a video about how like Liv Tyler was actually CGI.
She might have
maybe
been.
she was. It looked bad.
Do you think they were even in the same room?
They were probably in front of like a green screen.
You know how at the end of Civil War in the post-credit scene you have Steve breaking his friends out of the raft, which is where they're at in that Liv Tyler scene. Yeah. And how he's like, you see Steve through the glass and he's like smiling and it looks like really fake for some reason.
It looks composed.
That's what it reminded me of. I was like, this is Steve Rogers' post-credit scene 2016 Civil War.
Yeah. Just anyway, Liv Tyler. But what I say that because he really loves his daughter, and like you can tell, and like his desire to like change and like reconnect with her.
Yeah. I really liked that.
That's a good character motivation for him, right? And, that's like one of the only character, unless I'm missing something, but that's like the only character motivation like that's personal and emotional in the movie. I think. Well, I guess maybe Sam wanting to free
his
Isaiah Bradley from prison. So those are like the two main ones. But also there's the element of like he's dying, so he like wants to get these pills and makes these guys do it. But like doesn't trust him and doesn't let him go, and that fuels that guy's anger, and he creates a villain. Yeah, there's a lot of cool details with his character, and it's pretty believable, like the progression of the events on his side of the story. I guess of like what would happen, and he honestly probably would have been a better protagonist for this movie because I feel like he's kind of the center point of the movie. Captain America just kind of comes in and beats up bad guys to help out. It saves a war with Japan, I guess. But that's the whole adamantium thing's another plot point.
So there's this really big, maybe it's not that big of a plot, but there's this plot hole, right? So Japan is upset with America because they're accusing him. So at the beginning of the movie, the whole action set piece, what Sidewinder had stolen was a sample of the Japanese adamantium. And obviously Captain America and the U.S. take it back. And then that's when they have that whole thing at the White House to give it back to Japan, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Then, and this is all set up by the leader. He's the one who hired Sidewinder to steal the adamantium. It gets really complicated for no reason.
Yeah.
You explaining it right now is helping me understand.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
So the leader hired Sidewinder to steal it for the purposes to have the U.S. come back and take it, right? He wanted the U.S. to come and get it, so that way he could then send false information to Japan to make Japan like, oh, the U.S. faked stealing it. They're the ones who hired Sidewinder, so he's framing the U.S. and President Ross as the ones who stole the Japanese adamantium to then give it back, to then get them to agree to sign on to this big agreement between all the nations of the world to equally share the adamantium statue in the middle of the Pacific or Indian Ocean. I don't know where it is. So that's like the leader's grand plan or part of it. He's like, I'm going to incite a war between the Japan and the U.S. by framing the U.S. to make it look like they stole it. But really, I did it. So that's all fine and good until you realize that when Sidewinder goes back and he talks to the leader and then he comes back and tries to kill Captain America, he tells Sidewinder everything he needs to know. Like, he tells Sidewinder about his plan, about how the whole thing. Sidewinder gets captured at like the beginning of the movie. Like, when he comes back to kill Captain America, Sam like disables him and he's in prison. He's locked up. So when Japan comes around, is like, oh, it looks like you guys did this. It's like, do you have proof that you didn't do it? Like, aren't you? And Ross is like, I don't know how to tell you. I don't know how to tell you. You guys have proof. And Sam Wilson knows this because he I don't know. It's like you have proof because you have this guy, Sidewinder, who spoke to the leader personally, and, and the leader told him his plans. But I guess they forgot about that until way after, right? Because then he does get the information from Sidewinder, right? Later in the movie, where he's like, he promises him to have a better jail cell or whatever.
When I get out of prison, I will find you.
So
or something like
the
that.
writers clearly were aware of this. They just like, oh, we're going to conveniently forget about it until after all the crazy plot events happen, you know? So it's like, I don't know. It's like, you expect me to believe that Sam and Ross are just like this dumb that they wouldn't interrogate Sidewinder after he claims to have met the guy that hired him? You know what I mean? Like, clearly this dude is involved with everything. Yeah. Especially Ross wouldn't... I don't know.
Yeah.
You make a really good point, Jason.
It's just so dumb.
You can't expect
this movie is
too
so
much
dumb.
from... we should expect more, but...
We deserve better.
The actual... Like, I don't think the movie is, like, an entertaining enough thriller... like action thriller to like
ignore
like the lack of character development from its protagonist. Like you can have like a fun thriller, like John Wick, for instance. Like, well, even that has good, like decent character work, but it's not like a character study. Like it doesn't focus a whole on like his personality, but it's just so darn entertaining to watch. Right. Even with Winter Soldier, like I think that does have good character stuff, but even as like a thriller, spy thriller alone, it's like really entertaining. And like maybe you could forgive some other flaws of the movie. But with this one, it's like the plot is so convoluted. It's, you know, it's got plot holes. There's so many different arcs going on. There's so many story beats. It's just like, it's a mess. I feel like they hint at a lot of different things that could be interesting, but they don't really commit to anything. What are some of those interesting things that don't come back? Like I had one earlier. I think it was the meaning
after we watched the movie, you were talking about the whole putting a new Avengers team together.
Yeah, like I want to rebuild the Avengers, and then that's the end. Like not brought up ever again.
It's like the next time he sees the president's like that ship has sailed or something, right? Because like the president very much shifted his mentality after the shooting, after
his friend, and then that's just never brought up again. The whole Sidewinder thing again, like that was frustrating. I think just a lot of the things with like his the idea of like carrying the mantle again. It's just on, like we talked about that at length earlier. But yeah, there's just so many things in this movie that I think could be interesting if they picked one or two of them and just committed to it. But no, they had to throw 40 different things. Adamantium, this, you know,
the leader,
pairing relationship with my daughter, that, you know. So it's a little frustrating. And like this new Black Widow lady, like,
dude,
she's in it. That's cool.
She's in the movie, I guess.
But anyway, yeah, as the plot itself is convoluted, but at least I think an interesting, like, Harrison Ford character, I think saves carries the movie big time.
I enjoy how much. So like when he does turn into the Red Hulk, for me, it's just like, okay. But everything before that, I actually really enjoyed how much tension was built, because we get a scene where the leader is talking to the president through his earpiece on the Navy ship, and he's trying to get the president to Hulk out. And he's really close to doing that. And I think Harrison did an amazing performance of trying to contain his anxiety and stress and anger throughout the movie, but also like revealing enough to see that we're progressing towards him finally hulking out. Because, you know, at first we see him in the movie taking pills before that big speech. Later on, like, we see him starting to get, you know, a little riled up about the situations around him. And then, you know, then you get the leader in his ear trying to really just get the worst out of him. And so I think but I know that I enjoyed seeing how much tension was built there, because you really saw the president was really trying not to give in to what the leader wanted. And for me, it was really believable. Like, it felt like he was in so much pain and was like boiling on the inside.
He resisted for a long time.
Yeah. Resist the devil and he will flee.
There you go. Yeah, and I think the villain, they finally brought up that loose end from the Incredible Hulk of like how, what was he?
That's another thing.
What happened to that guy?
His head started bubbling.
So at the end of that movie, I don't know
it's been so long since I've seen it.
I can't remember what caused him, but he basically like gets knocked around. Maybe it was by Emil, who's the abomination.
Emil? Like
Emil.
Like a dinner?
Leblonsky.
EMI.
Blonsky.
Yeah, Blonsky. I think it's Emil Blonsky. EMIL.
Who showed up in She-Hulk, by the way.
We're not talking about that.
We're not going to talk about that.
My point is the leader. Who's he played by? Did you have him pulled up?
I'll pull it up again.
At the end of the 2008 Hulk movie, he
by
gets
the leader. Who are you talking? You're talking about
Tim Blake Nelson, Samuel
Samuel
Stearns.
Samuel Stearns.
And he had the green face.
So at the end of 2008 Hulk, he gets knocked back or something, and he has a bunch of samples of Bruce Banner's blood. He gets knocked back. He hits his head, so he has a cut in his head. And Bruce Banner's blood falls or drips into his open wound.
But he doesn't turn into the Hulk, though.
No, because it only affects his brain. So it gives him a super brain.
So he's all about like probabilities, and I'm like, this is some cheesy like C-level comic book villain power.
Yeah. So the leader
that they tried to adapt.
So the leader in the comics, and I guess in this movie they try to explain it. He's supposed to be like super smart. Like he can see.
Plus he's green, right?
He is green in the comics. He's kind of green in this movie, sort of.
Yeah, he's got like a greenish looking head. He looks weird. Yeah.
It doesn't.
But hey,
the scenes where he's like in the dark, I think it looks really good actually. When he's out in the sunlight, it's like
when he's dark and mysterious,
you can clearly tell it's more CGI than makeup. If they did makeup, I think it would have looked awesome.
His head was practical.
It was. Mm-hmm. Oh, it looked kind of fake to me.
I appreciate that.
Well, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
It did look
clearly
pretty practical.
I can't see.
I don't know if it was like my favorite design ever, but I appreciate that they actually did the work and like.
Well, anyways, so you got this character who's supposed to be able to not see the future, but be able to predict outcomes. And that's a problem when.
What's his name? Probability Man?
He's the leader.
Is that really his?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. I thought you were just because he was like the leader of like the bad
I don't know if
guys
they
or
call him
something.
that in the movie, but that's his character. In the
I thought you were
comics.
just implying he was like the leader of the bad guys
I don't
in general.
I don't think they ever called him the leader in the movie, but I only found that out after doing some research.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so in the comics, his character is the leader,
all makes
a
sense to
villain
me.
known as. So the problem with characters like this, bro, is the character is supposed to be is technically smarter than the writer's writing for him, right?
Yeah.
So what you really get is a lot of dumb stuff, a lot of stupid stuff.
And this movie was also rewritten and had
10 million
problems. So I don't want to be too hard on the writers. They probably
I'm gonna be hard on the writers.
I mean, you can be a little, but
It was
also,
rewritten because it was bad.
Papa Feige probably came in and was like,
Papa Feige?
I want you to change this and that and that.
Well, okay, but
Papa
the reason there's
Feige's. rewritings
rewritings and reshoots is because the movie was bad in the first place.
Maybe it was. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
So it's the writer's fault anyway. Like
I would
Who
be
hires the
interested.
writers?
I would be interested in seeing
Papa Feige.
the original cut before they did reshoots and change stuff. Like
I'm not that interested in seeing it personally.
Well, I guess it's just interesting to see what was changed.
I guess I'll put it like this: if Marvel thought it was bad, and they still released what we got, then it was bad.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it was not as
Yeah.
bad as the Marvels that came out last year.
This movie is-
or 2 years ago. I don't
it's
even remember when
close.
that movie came out.
I guess this movie has redeeming qualities that the Marvels just doesn't.
Anyway, we don't need to
But
talk about
the
the Marvels
leader
right now.
is such a dumb character, dude. He's so dumb in this movie. He's
like
like
I get it, but I'm also like it is kind of goofy.
He's like my perfect plan. You ruined it.
I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling
Kids. Dude,
superheroes.
it's so dumb. Before Harrison Ford hulks out, he shows up. For one, why is Sam just sitting out there on a park bench somewhere in DC?
Why not?
Wait, it
this
was
is right
no.
after-
It was because
He was at the hospital. So
Yeah.
he's outside the hospital. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that. Because in my head, I'm like,
No
what are you
problemo.
doing here?
There are plot holes, but that was not one of them.
So but still, you just cut to Sam sitting outside doing nothing, I guess in the courtyard of a hospital, because we didn't mention this, because Joaquin, not Phoenix, is
Joaquin
he
Perez.
blew up.
What's his superhero name?
The pigeon.
Are you serious? No. I was like, no, that's not it, bro.
No, it's some bird related thing, I'm sure.
That's his call sign.
Anyways, Sam's sitting there in the courtyard of the hospital. And the leader comes out in his grotesque form.
Oh, he's just called the Falcon.
So he's like, oh,
Sorry.
so the leader just walks up and just like, you gotta stop it, Sam. Try to stop me now. Haha. And then Sam is like, hey, the bad guy's like right here. And he gets arrested. Like, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to expose himself and get himself arrested. It was just really bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think I was trying to say the whole idea is like, I'll still win even if I'm arrested. But like, because like his whole goal was to ruin Thaddeus Ross's reputation. But also, like, you could totally just like not get arrested too. Like, if you don't want to.
Also, you know how Sam has the pills analyzed by his super awesome military guy friend?
The
Navy SEAL guy?
who died? Dude, when he died, I was so sad.
So he's also an expert pill analyzer?
No, he doesn't. He sends it to some guys.
Oh, he sends it to some guys. Okay. I'm like, who is this guy?
But how did the leader find him? And also how did he get him to come right up to where he was so he could shoot him out of?
Don't ask
No,
questions.
he didn't shoot him. He had some kind of frequency to make his heart
explode
inside.
That's right. I forgot. The leader has awesome frequencies and also can brainwash you with flashing lights.
Yeah.
And in music. And trigger you with music. See, okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because the soldier guy walks up the stairs. I'm questioning, this is a soldier. How did he not see like a guy in black clothing right there at the top of the stairs? And
also, this is a military combat. How do you get to that? Like, they're like in the center of this.
They're training.
Like, secret military.
Did it show how? I feel like it showed how he got over the fence. Maybe.
No,
I think you're thinking of when
they're entering the compound.
When the Falcon and
The
Joaquin,
Falcon.
not Phoenix.
When the Falcon and the Falcon.
Yeah.
Captain America and the Falcon.
The Falcon soldier.
This is too much for our brains.
So, but no, like he was just surprised by him. Not surprised, but like
He's like, who are you?
It's like, this guy's a soldier. He's trained. How does he just happen to not see this guy? I feel like that was not good writing. And then also, he's on his knees. His heart's about to explode. Honestly, I hated that he died. Anyways, he's like, who are you? As he is about to die. And the leader's like, isn't it obvious? I'm the hero. And I'm like, what?
This movie, man.
Like,
I'm glad I forgot a lot of these details. Now
What
they
in
bring
the
it back
world?
up.
One, cringy delivery. Two, that makes almost zero sense.
I'm the hero.
Unless he's saying like he's the hero and he thinks he's the hero, kind of like how Thanos thought he was doing a good thing by wiping out half the population. But like, we don't have.
Was that better? Was that a better line than, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil?
I actually like that line.
That line is like Shakespeare
also,
compared.
Maybe
to
I'm romanticizing like super secret spec ops soldiers and stuff, but wouldn't people who sneak onto these secret bases kind of be shot on sight? Is that not
Oh
a
yeah,
thing?
they would definitely.
I mean,
Or at least they would be
Because this guy's like a SEAL, right? So this is
they
like
would
a
be
secret
neutralized,
base.
whether that means killed or incapacitated.
Yeah, like wouldn't he immediately like at least tackle the dude instead of like, who are you? Oh, you.
I have death frequency. I have loud beeping noise.
before he saw him, he did trigger that frequency, and so like he was already.
I guess.
And that's
you know.
just
Also,
a dumb way to kill
wouldn't
somebody.
I just like
what?
Wouldn't you be able to like roll away or something? I know he's like kind of stunned, but like get away from the frequency.
It's a beeping noise. How is that going to
Also,
stop your
I need to
heart?
see. I need to see that.
Also, how does it not affect the leader? How does it not affect him? Isn't it? If it's a frequency, it's like it's not directed.
We're just going to suspend our disbelief on this one, I guess.
Dude, I need to see that in How It Should Have Ended, the YouTube channel. Like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
He just rolls away. And the leader's like, well, that didn't work.
He rolls away, pulls out his pistol, shoots him.
He pushes dodge roll B like it's Dark Souls.
Or like we find out he has earbuds in. Like he just puts earbuds in to take the phone call, and so he can't hear the frequency. And so he's like on his phone about to call the guy who analyzed the pills, and he looks up, he's like, oh hey, you don't look like you're supposed to be here.
Should have dodge rolled. Also, I don't know if B is the button to dodge roll. I know there's a lot of passionate.
It's on Xbox.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to offend any Dark Souls fans, but anyway.
I'm Dark Souls fans.
Oh, good for you. I tried to play it once and didn't go well.
Because you suck.
Yeah,
I'm
do.
sorry. I didn't mean that. Yes, I did.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Geez, we have
this
just
movie.
been.
I mean, I guess we've picked. Okay, I guess we
Yeah.
could. So there's two more action set pieces. I guess we haven't really discussed. The one at the adamantium place when the tensions with Japan and
The sea
America are
battle.
still high.
There has to be a generic gray background sea, some sort of water battle in every
I
Marvel
kind of
movie.
liked it. I thought the giant, elder god statue thing looked really good for no reason. It's like, oh, did they spend all their money on that?
Bro, it just kind of ripped off the Wakanda Forever fight scene where they were over the sea and there was boats
That wasn't even
and they
that,
were flying around and doing.
that wasn't even that memorable for me.
And yeah, it's like anyway.
I mean, I thought Sam flying around looked pretty good. Him stopping missiles, and then Joaquin not Phoenix gets blowed up.
And they're like, yo, we have to show Japan that America's actually not serious by firing these missiles, so we're going to stop. I'm like, bro, you don't think Japan wouldn't be shooting back at that point? Like, they're firing missiles at them. Like, this is ridiculous.
They're in the air.
This is, I mean, this was...
If only you had a prisoner that could...
Like, I know Captain America is a big deal, but, like, you think an attack from the president, like... Japan's just gonna be like, well, maybe we'll wait and see what this Captain America guy is doing. I don't know. It just
Honestly, you bring up a good point. Like, what if Japan did fire back, and now Captain America is faced with a bigger problem to solve? Like, now he's got to stop both these American missiles and Japanese missiles.
and he didn't even cause any of these problems in the first place. He's just having to clean up this mess, which
I mean, fair.
it's kind of annoying. But it's like what the Spider-Man movies did, but it's also like way worse than the Spider-Man movies.
No, the Spider-Man movies, he caused the problems.
Well, the
Like, you
third
talking-
one, I guess he didn't. But
No, he caused that.
He caused it in the second one,
Dude,
too.
he's Doctor
And the first one.
Doctor
No.
Strange was literally like,
it wasn't his fault. It was Tony Stark was the guy that created Mysterio, though, basically. Right?
I guess, but Peter just blindly
And
hands
Vulture
over
was
the-
caused by the destruction of.
Okay, yeah, that's not his fault.
So anyway,
But the second movie, he does just hand over all those super drones to Mysterio.
but then also like Peter, tries to stop the Vulture on the ferry, and like that doesn't go well.
I'm just saying, like, it's this idea. Marvel does this a lot, where they like Spider-Man. Yes, he did have bearing on the escalation of a lot of these issues, but I think like Marvel in general, like a lot of times, these heroes like aren't like they're not the ones that like create these problems, but they're there to solve it. And I guess you don't need to like do that, but I think it is interesting for there to be a personal connection. And again, I know we talked about this at the beginning, but I just feel like Captain America in this movie is just like side questing. Like this is just like like this whole thing. It's like it feels like a Thaddeus Ross movie that Captain America like solves all the problems. You know, does that make sense?
yeah,
I
guess
get
what you're
you.
saying.
So
But yeah, so there's that fight over the ocean, over the Elder God. And then there's
Can I say something about the ocean fight before we
Yeah.
move on?
let's do it.
So this is something I was thinking about, and I think we have these fantastical elements of the movie and this very political thriller grounded side of the movie as well. And I think they really excelled at the political thriller side of this movie. The fantastical elements, more of like, the Hulk and all this stuff, it was kind of for me. It was just kind of passive. But I also think it was a bit hard to... I don't think they did a great job of like merging those two well.
I agree with you.
Because there were moments where it felt really grounded, and then there were moments where it felt completely removed from that. And it was just like Captain America flying around and the Red Hulk jumping out after him. But to go back to what I was going to say about the sea battle, do you guys remember when there was that last missile heading towards one of the Navy ships and Sam was flying right above it? And to get it off its course, he jumped on it and like bounced it with his momentum and his weight to crash into the ocean. Dude, he like surfed a missile for a split second and
Surfing USA.
literally. And so like when I saw that, I laughed out loud. I was like, huh, because one, I was like, that's kind of fun. Like, it's fun. Like, you got Captain America surfing a missile right now. Like, that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it felt so cartoony for the movie that it was in. And I was just like, what just happened? Like, he just surfed a missile and we're just gonna keep moving on. Like, it was fun, and it was fun in its nature on one hand, but then on the other hand, I was like, did that just happen in this movie that we're watching? Like, it didn't feel...
Indeed it did.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Dude, so then the last set piece is obviously the big fight at the end against the Red Hulk. And I'll start it by like, I actually like it.
Harrison Hulk.
Yeah, the Harrison Hulk.
Harry Hulk.
The fight as a whole, I think, is like it's good old dumb fun.
Which they spoil the coolest movies in the trailer.
Yeah,
the coolest
all the
moves.
Red
in
Hulk
the trailer.
stuff is literally like the last like 7 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's a fun fight, but there's this like really dumb moment. So the Hulk is like on top of the White House, the Red Hulk, and I guess there's dudes up there or something who are shooting at the Red Hulk, and he's about to hit him with like a light pole or a pillar or something, and Sam catches it. like the Red Hulk is swinging and Sam catches it, and they show his like boosters going off, so they're implying like it's the momentum from the boosters, but no, like he's like Sam doesn't have any sort of super strength.
He's still a human.
Yeah, how is he catching this? I think it's a pillar or a pole or something that's being swung by the Red Hulk, and he like stops it. He doesn't like slow it down. He like stops it midair, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, that should have shattered his arms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care if you're wearing vibranium. Wearing armor right here doesn't stop the momentum from going through your hand and shattering, your fingers and your arm bones.
Bro,
Yeah.
it's vibranium, bro.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
Magic metal.
Dude,
Maybe
magic
he
from Wakanda.
Maybe he's juiced up between two scenes with adamantium, and now
Right,
he's
right,
got
right.
an adamantium skeleton.
Dude, he's Wolverine now. That's crazy.
No.
He's Wolverine America.
Wolverine in America, Ant-Man, because his helmet's Ant-Man. Oh, and Black Panther, because he's got vibranium absorbing.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
It's so
Yeah,
dumb.
that is a good point. Wait.
But the fight as a whole, I think, is really it's eye candy. They have
It was okay to
they
me.
have
he,
cherry
like-
blossoms.
when he like twists and slices the car or whatever, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
we
it's
saw
like
that
we
in the
already saw
trailer.
that in the
That was in the
trailer.
trailer.
And that's about as cool as it gets, honestly. But
he just charge at him with a broken wing and like stabs him. It's pretty neat.
yeah,
I mean, then he talks him down. He's like, Ross, what do you think your daughter will think of this?
he has another do better speech,
Do better.
which I think that was them trying to be like, oh yeah, this is like he's kind of like Steve Rogers, but I just wasn't buying it.
Steve Rogers. I mean, yeah, he'll talk him down, but if he had the chance, he would have blown Red Skull's head off. So like,
He'd be like, why do you call this guy a terrorist? He's like killing people everywhere.
I do think people like romanticize Steve Rogers a little bit because like Steve Rogers definitely killed. Like he wasn't above putting bad guys down.
Yeah.
His whole first movie was him killing Nazis.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you want to kill Nazis?
I feel like his shield would just like decapitate people.
in real life.
Yeah, when you see him bounce off a person, it's like, man, that would have cut.
Like this, if vibranium is as strong as they say it is, this should
and
be.
he's throwing it like, you know, at 100-mile-per-hour.
Yeah, this should be
He's the
decapitating.
world's best ultimate frisbee player.
Yeah.
With that shield.
Like it just all of a sudden has like a light touch when it bounces off a guy's head. But anyway,
He's like, hey, walk it off 3 hours, you'll be good. You'll have some head. You'll have some head ringing, but you'll be all right.
Yeah,
And it bounces off trees and stuff. But this is vibranium, right? Like,
I like the idea that the shield kind of does whatever the user intends it to do. Like sometimes you just need it to like hit someone and stay there, or you need it to bounce 4 places, so it's going to do that. I like the idea is like somehow it knows the intentions of the user.
Physics, you just suspend your disbelief.
It's like slightly aware. It's a slightly aware shield.
Yeah.
Right?
It knows when to play pinball and when to
not.
So, if it's PG-13, it always plays pinball.
It's just such a fun ability.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the movie. I think.
Yeah, I was going to mention like to Asher's point about how like the fantastical element versus the political element.
Yeah.
It felt like, is this the Incredible Hulk 2 or is it Winter Soldier 2? Mm-hmm. And I think the visual style of the movie, we talked about this after, and I was like, we watched it in digital, and I wonder if it like would have looked better in IMAX. And it would have, but like, was our theater wrong? Like, was the projector bad? Because it looks really grainy and it looks dirty, but it just didn't. Like, we've seen movies do that and it'd be really effective, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work.
It's not a gritty movie. It's actually like really.
It doesn't work. Like,
I think it was so like the grain you were talking about, like the visually seeing that. I think they were really intentional about that. And I think it works for the political thriller side more than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, because like graining a frame, like tries to ground the movie, like in realism, and like we've seen superhero movies do this. Like the Batman did that, right? And it's creative use of color, and like nothing really overly fantastical happens. Like the Riddler, it's not like there's a guy like turning into a Hulk, and there's not supernatural mind control. It's just like he beats guys up, sure, but anyway. When the guy's turning into a Hulk, and when you have a guy with a goofy green face who's talking about probabilities, like I'm just like,
I'm the hero.
I don't know, like, maybe it just didn't work with the tone of the movie.
In the face.
And I don't know if the writers and the director really knew what the tone of the movie was going to be. It was just like all over the place. Like, what is this movie? Has an identity crisis? Is it a Thaddeus Ross movie? Is it a Sam Wilson movie? Is it a thriller? Is it this and that?
I think that poses the question of how much of this is them trying to tell a story on its own, yet still be connected to the universe, and how much of it is the MCU, I guess, as a whole, trying to push whatever things they need to keep their whole MCU going. Yeah. Because I think that's something else that needs to be balanced really well, and it's not something to take lightly, because it's something we saw in phase 1. Like, we had these standalone movies, yet we saw how they all came together and had a snowball effect. So I'm just wondering how much of this movie was them trying to keep momentum in the overall MCU, but also have like a well-told story on its own. And I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been.
Yeah, and I don't think even the film, like the graininess, I don't even think it like really enhanced the visuals of the film. I don't think it enhanced the tone or like what it was going for. I just thought it was like distracting. Like, that's why I think that's kind of why I said like, why would it have looked better? And And I think with Marvel, we are accustomed to looking at like super bright colored films.
Well,
but,
not all the time. I mean,
but
you look at some movies; they're a little muddy.
Which ones?
Some of the movies in Marvel, like their colors are pretty watered down, I would say.
Yeah, but I guess just in general though, like I'm thinking of like Spider-Man No Way Home was just like color everywhere. You know, and it just seemed like, not saying like you can't change that, but if it is a fantastical movie, maybe your visual style should be
fantastical.
At least, you know.
It's fantastical.
Trying to go for one thing and swinging and missing, I guess. But
yeah.
Anyway.
And I kind of want to backtrack just really quickly before we move on. This is just another thing I want to complain about because I like complaining.
You sound sad with this.
Well, you know how earlier I was talking about how Bucky should have been in this movie more?
Yeah.
Well, he is in the movie a little bit when after the Falcon 2, Joaquin, not Phoenix, blows up. They're in the hospital and he's in surgery or whatever. You have Sam, like, I guess looking at the operating room or whatever, and Bucky shows up and he gives this really, like, they have a good moment.
They do.
They have a good moment. And is this the point where I turn to you and I say, like, I hate Marvel?
Yep, that's when you said that.
So they have this really...
you said it in between the characters talking on screen, and so I feel like everyone in the audience heard you say, I hate Marvel.
I remember that.
So they have this really, like, almost sweet moment. I'm like, this is... It's like a microcosm of, like, kind of what I wanted from this movie.
Yeah.
And they ruined it with a joke.
Bucky was giving him
awful joke.
Advice about life, and because his buddy almost died. And
apparently, Bucky's like running for Congress or something. Not established in any other movie before. I wasn't sure when I saw this, but I've since confirmed this is the first time they mentioned it. So we don't know this. And then, so it's never been established, right? And then Sam turns to him and is like, did your speechwriter write that for you? After Bucky gives his heartfelt speech. And he's like, yeah.
He's behind me.
I did. Yeah, he did, didn't he? And that's when I said I hate Marvel.
It's always the quips and the jabs.
It's just so like we didn't even know Bucky. Like it's after that scene that someone else walks in and is like, is that future Congressman Bucky Barnes? That's verbatim what they said, by the way. So we don't even know that that's what it is. So like the whole speechwriting thing comes out of nowhere. It's like, why does Bucky have a speechwriter? Like what's going on? Yeah. And apparently he's running for Congress. I feel like that's something that's like left in from a rewrite or a reshoot. So like we're supposed to know it beforehand.
That's a really good point.
And so by the time the joke comes around, it doesn't make any sense because they don't tell us he's running for Congress until after Bucky leaves the room and someone else walks in. It's just so dumb. And also it's like Bucky's like, good luck with the rest of this, Sam.
I know we spent a lot of time together back in that Disney Plus series, but
I know we fight really well. I know we have a lot of chemistry.
I'm gonna head out.
I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go run for Congress, even though I'm about to be in another movie where I'm gonna Winter Soldier it up. But that's besides the point.
Oh yeah, they're saving him for Thunderbolts, which boy oh boy.
I think that movie might be good.
It looks like it's gonna be a not as good like Guardians of the Galaxy.
I can
team
accept
up.
That. I can accept.
We are the Thunderbolts.
But hey, I haven't seen it, so I'm not gonna. But we can't call ourselves that. It's just I hate Marvel. It's just the same, like.
No,
anyway.
But it's just like it's so dumb, dude. Just like you have this heartfelt moment. He's like, "Did your speechwriter write that?" That's like if you came to console me and I was like, "Did your mom tell you to tell me that?"
They had to put that in there just to make sure the audience wasn't bored. Like, oh, we can't bore them with this emotion and character stuff. Like, let's throw in a little jab just to make sure they're entertained.
Oh, and also, and good luck dealing with this world crisis. Good luck stopping World War III.
I can't give you my arm. Sorry, bro.
Me, future congressman, I'm not worried about World War III. You go handle that, Sam. Even though I could definitely help.
They brought back the Celestial from the Eternals.
That has been been like one of the biggest things I've like hammered the MCU for is like, guys,
the Eternals. Specifically.
I was like, guys, a giant elder god showed up in the ocean and no one's talking about it. So I'm glad the movie addresses it, even if it's like a little goofy. But it's like finally you guys are dealing with this, I don't know, catastrophic
And then
event.
apparently it's in the Indian Ocean.
So not Pacific.
But apparently, like, Japan has rights to it or something. And I was like, wait, how does that work geographically? Like, isn't that...
Well, I think oceans are international. So it's whoever gets there first. So Japan might have been there first.
Oh, okay. That sounds...
I guess.
That sounds kind of silly, but anyway. But that's not a movie problem. That's a international rules problem. But anyway, so... The MCU, now, where the heck are they going? I know we've talked about this in the past, but we got Avengers. Well, what movies come out between now and Avengers Doomsday?
Nothing.
Thunderbolts.
And Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
Jason's like, nothing. Absolutely
Two movies, actually.
nothing.
In my head, I was thinking next year, and I don't think anything comes out next year before.
Wait, there's only 2 movies before Doomsday?
Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts.
You can't forget
Guys,
about Daredevil.
At least that's
Guys.
announced.
Guys, what is going on?
Maybe they'll throw something in there that we don't know about.
What is going on? There's
Nobody knows what's going on.
So
there is so much to do with the MCU. We don't need it just, one, it feels really soon for some other Avengers type thing. And then 2, do we even need another Avengers type thing? Because there's so much other stuff to work with in the Marvel universe.
I think we absolutely need another Avengers thing, but I think they've absolutely not set it up at all to be effective.
I don't think we need another Avengers thing.
Like, the Avengers is what gets butts in theaters. Like,
The Avengers are gone, dude. Iron Man, dead. Captain America might as well be dead.
and that goes into my second
Black
one.
Widow, dead. Hawkeye, he's deaf. The Hulk, on a different planet.
He's what?
He's deaf.
Did he go deaf?
In his own show, he has, like, hearing problems. He's
I
not
watched
actually deaf.
Hawkeye. And I guess
He has, like, a hearing
aid.
aid that he turns off when he doesn't want to. It's like a gag.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's actually pretty funny. I like the Hawkeye
That's a good show. Yeah,
I like the Hawkeye show.
that's a good show.
So, Steve, basically dead. Tony, dead. Hulk in space with a son.
What
out of
about
nowhere.
Thor? Is he still out large? Is
Thor,
he still in the
he has a
Avengers?
daughter.
Is he in the Avengers still?
He has a daughter, and he's in space. Black Widow, dead. Hawkeye,
So
deaf.
I think
So the Avengers gets butts in seats, but there's no event. They're dead.
So here's what
Half
the
of them are dead.
MCU should have made it Fantastic Four years ago. And they should have made Fantastic Four
You know
years
what we
ago.
need?
But see,
We
the
need
thing was
X-Men.
they couldn't because of the rights.
They got the rights like in 2020.
But
Really?
that's still
They've
more
had
recent.
X-Men for a while. We
Well,
haven't seen.
I'm talking about Fantastic Four.
Oh,
But that was
Well,
part of the same deal. It was the Fox. It was the
I
Fox
think
movie
it
deal.
was. Somebody fact checked us just to make sure. But every time we try to fact check Jason, he's always right. So,
I've lied about a couple of things.
but I guess my point, like what you were
Yeah,
saying,
continue with your
it's
points.
like for the first Avengers, we had 3 clear, like, or maybe 4 if you count the Hulk, like clear. These are the Avengers. These are going to be leading. They're superstars. They're movie stars, and they're heading the charge here. Who do we have now that's going to be heading the charge for Avengers Doomsday?
You know, say
Is it
compadre.
really going to be Captain America at this point, like Sam Wilson? Is that what's going to get people excited?
we have Doctor Strange.
Like maybe Fantastic Four is like really good. Or
Isn't that
something.
in another universe?
But
Well,
yeah,
it's
like
not- well,
timeline, multiverse wise, we don't know how that's going to work. But
If it's in a, I mean, if it's not in another universe, how do you explain Galactus showing up and nobody remembering that? Because that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
so like, let's assume that I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt, which I shouldn't even have. I don't even have to do that. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt that Fantastic Four is going to be really good. So maybe that gets people excited for the Avengers. But outside of Fantastic Four, who's like
Spider-Man, I guess?
Like, are people going to really get excited about? I mean, maybe the Fantastic Four is so good, like the 4 of them really like carry the movie. But
Yeah.
Spider-Man has to be in Avengers Doomsday.
He
like
is.
it is going to be inexcusable if he is not
Well,
one, if not like the main.
Here's the thing. He's in it, but I think most of his scenes are in a mask because Tom Holland's actually filming the Odyssey right now.
Yeah.
So he won't be around to film a lot of that. So he might be in the movie, but he might not be in the movie that much.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if Spider-Man isn't at like the forefront of this movie, what are they do? What is MCU doing?
Who are the strong characters?
He's their prized possession right now.
Also, there's, the one that's coming out. So there's the Avengers Doomsday. Then there's the Avengers Secret Wars. I don't know how they're going to do Secret Wars, because aren't the Skrulls good guys? In Secret Wars, like in the comics, the storyline, the Skrulls, they take over. Yeah. One of the biggest parts of that whole story is Captain America being a Skrull, because he was kidnapped by the Skrulls and hidden away. And he's like that for months. You can't do that here unless you're going to Sam Wilson, whatever. So I don't know how are they going to do Secret Wars, because I never saw Secret Invasion because I heard it sucked and it looked terrible and I didn't want to watch it. But were the Skrulls bad guys in that show? Like, do any of you know?
I know some Skrulls are good because we first get introduced to Skrulls.
Well, I know Skrulls are good in Captain Marvel, and they show up briefly at the very end of No Way Home when Nick Fury is actually a Skrull. Ridiculous, by the way. So I don't know what are they going to do with Secret Wars? Is it going to be completely different? Is it not going to involve the Skrulls?
I don't know. I think that the whole thing is. Well, we'll see what happens 2026 when Doomsday comes out, which Spider-Man 4 comes out after that. But I think it's the same year. So well, I mean, we'll have to see what happens. But right now, I'm pretty sure that Doomsday is in production.
So I don't know how much this matters, but Daredevil Season 2, Born Again Season 2, comes out ahead of Doomsday next year. At least as of right now. And I know that I think what they're trying to do is if you remember the Defenders on Netflix, they're trying to bring a lot of those characters or some of those characters back for season 2 of Daredevil. Okay. So maybe that might play in a little bit now it's a lot more involved.
I just don't know. We haven't seen Daredevil, like his whole show. I mean, really good show. Just like it hasn't been interconnected with the Avengers ever.
Well, it couldn't.
So I don't know how I feel about it, because he just doesn't feel like an Avenger, if that makes sense.
Well, he's not, and he's not even in the comics. But he is a popular character that they have. And now, I mean, you watched the latest version. It's definitely a lot more involved with the greater MCU. And so when the Netflix show was coming out, even though it was canon sort of to the greater MCU. The MCU or Kevin Feige at the time was like, you don't really mention any of this stuff in your show.
Yeah.
But now, because it's definitely 100% a part of the MCU, you get a lot more leeway. Now, I'm not saying that means Daredevil or any of these other like the Punisher or whatever is going to show up. Because realistically, can they fight an Avengers level threat? Like, probably not. No. I don't know. It just depends on the threat, I guess. But
Dr. Doom.
But my point of being is like maybe there's something there, right?
Yeah.
Like with the hoping that the Fantastic Four will connect somehow and be really important. Maybe Daredevil will be important in some form or fashion.
I mean, I hope. I mean, my favorites at this point.
Spider-Man.
Probably Spider-Man. I'm hoping Fantastic Four works out, and maybe like. Daredevil? Like, are those the guys that they're going to roll with? Like,
Spider-Man and Daredevil have a lot of comics together, have a lot of, like, their character historically.
Does Thor
And they do introduce them interacting in No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Thor might come back. I think that's on the table.
Thor. The new Guardians.
Doctor Strange is coming back. Dude,
Doctor Strange, who went from, like, one of my favorite characters to, like... They completely butchered him in his latest movie.
It's still, it just so bad, feels like the B team. Like, the B-Vengers.
I understand that.
The B-Vengers plus Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man's the A-team easily in terms of entertainment value, right? But I don't know, like...
I just really want X-Men, dude.
The Hulk might come back.
I really want X-Men.
That should have been their focus. They should have been like... The MCU
should have swapped to telling X-Men stories.
Well, exactly. They should have been, we're going to go focus on X-Men, Fantastic Four.
Because then you don't need Avengers.
Spider-Man.
You could do an X-Men movie.
X-Mengers.
But.
But
with all that being said, our hopes and dreams are going to be refreshed this July. When their villains of the Marvel DC Comics releases Superman in
Dude,
theaters.
David Cornsweet's in. I know we talked about this before we did this, but I watched Twisters today.
Oh, he is in. Yeah,
Yeah, David Cornsweet's.
he's like kind of a jerk in the movie.
I watched that. I was like, why is Superman in my tornado movie? I didn't know he was in it.
So yeah, if Superman's really good, then MCU bro gotta step up the game.
I was thinking about that. I was wondering if, I'm not saying, okay, let me just say that basically MCU's road has been, pretty rocky since I would say like post Endgame, post No Way Home, And so
Really post Endgame, it's like there's only a handful of
yeah,
projects that have been successes.
yeah. And so like, is this like a really prime moment for DC to like make an impact? Because, in terms of superhero movies, DC and Marvel have been, the primary two. And so, DC has had a rocky past. And so I'm wondering, is this kind of fresh installment and fresh chapter of what they're trying to do with DC Studios? Like, is this going to make a bigger impact because of how MCU has been doing,
I think possibly. I know a lot of people say, oh, superhero fatigue. People don't want to watch them anymore. I think people definitely want to watch it because, there's that show Invincible that's been coming out recently that I really enjoy.
The animated? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so good, dude. And it satisfies that need for me to have like superhero content. Like, because I don't get Marvel anymore. Like I've had Daredevil the past couple of weeks, so that I've been really enjoying that. But I feel like that's like really rare. Like
I'd argue there's
you have Daredevil and then you have literally nothing else from Marvel.
Yeah.
So Invincible being here is like, man, this is like, and it's like really good, like writing, and it's based off of it's as far as I'm aware, it like follows the comic very closely too. Mm-hmm. So it's just really like it was a breath of fresh air in the comic book world way back in like the early 2000s when it was first written. And now having it animated and being produced as a show, it's another breath of fresh air again in the world where we have adaptations of superhero content, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, my point being though is like, yeah, people want this stuff though. So I think you're right. I think if Superman's just decent, I think DC could take
which
over.
I'm hoping.
I think Superman might actually be good. The closer we get to it, the more excited I get. I just love Superman so much.
Jason's really excited for Crypto.
I am recklessly assuming that Superman is just going to be the best movie of the year.
I don't know about best movie of the year.
I might be setting myself up for disappointment.
I feel like people give Superman the character such a hard time, and I feel like writers don't understand the character often enough. They always like screw him up in like different comics and different games and TV shows. There's very few times where I can point them like, man, they understood Superman, and I think James Gunn might get Superman.
I think DC
and I think we're
is
going
cooking.
we're going to see that.
DC's cooking
this
right
July.
now. And our next news episode, maybe we could talk about what DC's been doing.
Yeah.
Because Creature Commandos already came out.
That was successful. I haven't watched it, but
it's actually really good.
That's an animated show, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's pretty good. I mean, it's basically the same thing as Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, like all of these ragtag villain / hero team ups, but still solid.
Noun with a adjective of the same first letter before it.
Yes.
Suicide Squad, Creature Commandos.
It's basically the same concept, but it's
Guardians
still really
of the
good.
Galaxy. Oh, that's a little bit different.
And then
Galaxy Guardians.
There's, The Penguin just came out, which congratulations to Colin Farrell for winning.
Le Penguin?
He won the
Emmy?
SAG award and a Golden Globe for Best Actor.
He didn't have a belt on
the Emmys
set?
haven't happened yet, I don't think. But sorry? I didn't hear what you said.
I just asked if he didn't have a belt on set.
He had a belt on set?
Like he didn't have a belt
award.
on set.
Oh.
Because I could have delivered.
He won the award for sagging his pants. Yeah.
That's what penguins do. That's
Yeah,
what they
so
look
that's
like.
what
They look
penguins
like
do.
they have sagging pants. That's why they waddle.
Oh my gosh. That's so stupid. But yeah, the Matt Reeves verse is cooking right now.
Yeah, so
We got a
basically-
Clayface movie coming out. Did you see that?
A
Yeah.
Clayface movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so
coming
is this
out-
another villain-focused movie?
It's coming. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be Elseworlds or if it's going to be in the
mainline
continuity. But it's coming out like fall of 2026 when the Batman was supposed to come out. But they've approved it, greenlit, and will release a film in the DC universe after all this happened after the Batman came out. Like, why can't we get the Batman too?
Matt Reeves is like writing. He's like, wait a second. Oh, it seems like I'm writing a Clayface
frustrating.
movie.
And Robert Pattinson the other day was like, I'm ready to go. Like, whenever he's ready, I'm ready to start filming this thing.
He's like, I'm going to be old by the time. we start
like he's going to
filming.
be in his 40s by the time it comes out.
Good thing he looks young.
And we haven't even got there's a few concerning things about DC, but mostly it's been cooking. Like, we don't know who Batman's going to be yet in like the continuity, not the Matt Reeves stuff. But
I really want a Flash. Give me the Flash, James
Flash
Gunn.
hasn't been even thought of.
It's so disappointing.
Well,
man.
maybe they've thought of him, but
James
nothing has
Gunn's
been
mentioned
said
that he
about
wants
Flash.
to do the Flash. They just haven't gotten around to it.
I'm excited to see.
I want the Flash though.
Maybe
I want a live action Reverse Flash so bad. It's crazy.
I get you. Even with the Justice League, I don't think that's something we have to like focus on right now. It's okay to build up to that.
Yeah.
But even like with the Justice League, I feel like that needs to be done justice. No pun intended. Because other than
Pun received, yeah.
the Zack Snyder's full director's version of the Justice League, I feel like Justice League just is not. It just wasn't done justice. Like, and I'm not trying to make a pun, but like, yeah. And I hope that
It didn't live up to the hype. Like it never felt like that a big Avengers event.
yeah. And Justice
I like
League
the Snyder Cut.
before the Avengers
I
came
did
out,
too, but it was released on HBO Max like years
It was during
after
the pandemic too.
Yeah.
and before the Avengers came out, I had always thought like when you say, tell me a superhero team,
You would think Justice League.
I would think Justice League. So there's a lot of weight to Justice League, So, and hopefully in the future we might see a well written, well directed Justice League movie.
proper league.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I said a proper league.
We're gonna get
Proper
one.
league.
Alan Ritchson, who plays Jack Reacher, is hardcore campaigning to play Batman.
Dude, I would.
he said he would do it for free.
I would love Alan Richardson to be Batman, dude. He would be
He's
so cool.
He'd be like a really big Batman,
Dude, he would be Batfleck times 10.
Have you seen
Oh, yeah.
that one of the newest like iterations of Batman in the comics? I think it's called like the Absolute Batman, where he's like huge and he has like this
Yeah.
really big bat symbol that turns
Yeah.
into an axe.
I think it would make sense. It would make sense because he's like in his 40s and like he already said he was going to have Damian Wayne, who's like a kid who's like 10 or something. So that makes sense, like age wise.
Yeah.
So anyway,
how he plays Jack Reacher. I really love that show. It's not like the smartestly written, the most intelligently written show.
Smartestly.
it is entertaining.
It is super
Yeah.
entertaining. He's just like it's like imagine if the good guys just shot all the bad guys.
And it was like really cool. And the jerk always gets it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Like,
Doesn't he,
the
like-
bully always gets beat up.
Doesn't he punch a dude because the guy was abusing a dog?
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
he
fun
cares about
fact,
dogs. The
Alan-
John Wick Jack Reacher crossover. We need it.
John Reacher.
Alan Richardson, he plays Aquaman in Smallville.
Oh yeah, he does.
He plays Aquaman in Smallville.
Well,
So
that's fine. By the way,
I just think
Jason
it's a fun
Momoa
fact.
got casted
as
as Lobo.
Lobo, the bounty.
is who
Isn't he like a bounty hunter?
he's like
Yeah,
a-
he rides a motorcycle, right?
he's like really cool.
Anyway,
Isn't he kind of like a vampire?
I don't know. I've only seen him on that one episode of Justice League Unlimited. Or whatever. That's the only time I've ever
he
seen
just shows
him.
up once.
So anyway, we probably got to wrap this up soon.
Yeah.
What's our final rating / word for Captain America: Brave New
I forgot we
World?
were talking about that movie.
This is going to be a contender for that came out last year.
Jason's spirits lifted when the topic got off of our main topic for this episode.
We were coping. We were coping and started talking about the DCU, which we have hope for. So,
Daredevil and Superman makes my face smile.
you know what makes my
Your
face
whole
smile?
face smile.
My face smiles when you give us your final rating for.
When we first watched it and we came out of the theater, I think I gave it a 5. I have since lowered that. I have to give it a 4, dude. It's just so bad. I thought, and when I first watched it, I was like, I was entertained. Harrison Ford is a Hulk. It's fun. He did good. But the more I just thought about it, I was like, this movie has like a lot of dumb stuff going on. It's really stupid.
Yeah.
The writing is bad. The jokes are awful. There's no real themes to the movie. The only good character is like Harrison Ford. And even then, he just gets reduced to a giant red monster.
He gets enlarged to a
Which
red
I guess
monster.
serves his character some, which is like kind of... Sorry, he doesn't get...
He doesn't get reduced.
Yeah, so on some level, it serves his character, but on a lot of levels, it's just like, all right, giant monster in the movie.
But that was an important part of his, like...
It's...
After that happened, he released his office and, like, showed that he was humble and, like...
That was a cool part.
Got back with his daughter.
Good.
That sounded weird the way I said that. He reconciled with his daughter.
Good
Well, I mean, I guess you have to release your office if you're going to go be imprisoned in the
that is
raft.
true. Just don't question it too much.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, he did it willingly, but he also like literally had no choice. But, so yeah, 4 out of 10. Wouldn't watch again.
Well, buddy, old pal, I got us tickets to go see it again. So
That doesn't mean I'm going. You can buy as many tickets as you want.
Take someone else you want to abuse.
Yeah, I've seen enough.
all right. Well, I am gonna give it a 5 out of 10. I'm gonna be a little nicer.
You're too generous.
I'm gonna be a little nicer because I thought about it compared to the rest of the MCU. I'm like, this
You
is
shouldn't rate it based off of the.
this
rest
is
of the
middle
MCU.
of the pack MCU. I
Middle
think.
of the pack.
Some people would
How
say
far have we fallen that this is middle of the pack?
it's because there's been a lot of trash that's kind of clogged it up. lately.
You're right. I forgot.
But like, it's not the worst MCU movie.
Are there more bad?
It's not
MCU
the
movies
best.
than good ones now?
But yeah, it's a 5 at max. It's a 5. So I'm gonna give it a 5, mainly because I actually liked what they did with Thaddeus Ross's character, and some of the action sequences were pretty fun, and yeah, that's about it. So I think that earns it a 5. It might be in my it's definitely not going to be a movie that I like think about that much after this podcast. So anyway, what's your word, Asher? What you been cooking up?
So I'm going to give it an okay out of 10.
You're not going to give it like a brave out of 10.
No.
You're not gonna give it a new world.
Last time you're like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, this one's okay out of 10.
Okay.
And I think I've mentioned some of this, but the things I enjoyed most about the movie were the political thriller aspect. I think they had something going with that, but I feel like there was a lot of other things going on that I think kind of took away from that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed kind of trying to figure out how all these things were panning out. Like, why were these people brainwashed? What's up with that song controlling them? Stuff like that. I enjoyed that thriller side of things, and even just the political tension with Thaddeus Ross and all of that. And in terms of like character performances, I thought Isaiah Bradley as a character and Thaddeus Ross as a character were my 2 favorite characters to watch. Like, I think the actors brought a lot to their roles to bring to get me to care for them and to want to see how the story pans out for them. And so I think they did really well with their performances. Other than that, Other than that is, kind of like, there is, action scenes in there. And for me, a lot of it was just kind of passive. Again, I don't really feel like this Captain America movie is necessary. And that, I think, is a part of, how I guess perceived the movie when we went to go see it. But yeah, I could share more, but that's just a little bit, okay out of 10.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Okay out of 10.
As much as I've said things about it that were constructive criticism, like, it's one of those things where you see the people who like put in work, to still make this movie. And it's just kind of unfortunate to see it not be what it could be. But then again, at the same time, it's like, do we even need to spend resources on a movie like this? So, yeah.
I get, these people work hard on their things, but like also you got paid.
Yeah.
They got paid.
Well, I'm sure I think what I'm saying is, like, especially with certain people like VFX artists, set designers, makeup artists, like, there's a lot of people who were hired and like made a living off of this movie. Like, they were able to pay their bills and stuff. Yet I feel like maybe, I don't know who, but just with the direction of the movie and stuff, it's like, it feels almost kind of wrong to have a movie this subpar.
Yeah.
With how much money you spend on it.
With how much money you spend on it and how much time, like, people have put into it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work put into it, but yeah, the passion maybe isn't all there from like the creative leads. So,
I think there was a passion. It was just to make a different movie. It was to make a Hulk movie.
Maybe a couple different movies.
yeah.
I think, I really do think it was like, man, they really wanted to make a Hulk movie, but the studio as a whole was like, well, one, the Hulk rights to the Hulk are a little weird. So, and two,
Yeah.
you're making a Captain America movie.
It felt like, two things that war against each other. So anyway, so we are now in the brave new world of adamantium in the MCU.
Sure.
Brave,
And
I guess.
We're also in the brave world of...
Well, it's definitely the world.
We're in the brave world of following us on various platforms.
Ooh.
Like YouTube,
Spotify,
subscribe,
Apple, Instagram.
get us those 5-star reviews, likes, comments, good comments, hopefully. You can. I really want people to send us an email. Like, I know nobody does that, but for whatever reason, I want that.
Comment whatever you'd like. Positive, negative, neutral. And also like the video. Liking the video is good for us.
Yeah.
You'll find links to everything in the show notes. Thanks everybody for being such loyal fans.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think that's probably going to do it. This has been the On the Slate Movie Podcast. We are your hosts, Wesley,
Jason,
and Asher.
We'll see you in the next one. God bless.